I'm Stephen Van Well, CEO and co-founder of Karma. We're the guys behind that little gadget. In real life, it's about this size. And we do one thing: we make it incredibly easy to get internet access on all your devices. Just like Nick, we were part of Techstars back in 2012. And our journey started only a few months before Techstars, where we had absolutely no clue what we were doing. We were incredibly frustrated with the idea that it wasn't as simple to get connectivity across all my devices. Originally from Amsterdam, travel to the US, and the first thing you do is you turn off your phone. That's the first experience, right? And if you think about internet access, it's pretty broken. We have different providers, we have different networks, but none of these networks give you a solid solution. So if we think about the future of internet, it's about internet going wireless. And we all think about internet being Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a technology that we all are so accustomed to use, and it's almost everywhere, but not really. And if you think about how internet access actually reaches that Wi-Fi, it's a weird little structure. So we have buildings in New York, in San Francisco, everywhere in the US. And there are cables running into those buildings. And those cables are then split amongst the people that live in those buildings. And then they go into a router. And then they are attached to an access point, all wired. And then in a big high-rise in New York, we have 100, 200, 500 people that all make use of their own Wi-Fi signal. But in the background, we're still making use of those fixed cables. At Karma, we envision a world where every internet connection is delivered by cellular data. Think about 4G nowadays, and at some point we'll have 5G and 6G. And those speeds are faster than anything you've seen today in fixed broadband. Ooh, that's a lot of clicks. So when I first came over to the US, about 3 years ago, again, the first thing that I did is I turned my phone into flight mode. And then a magical thing happens. Your phone becomes a really expensive calculator. It does absolutely nothing. There's no Facebook, there's no hailing of a cab, there's nothing. So when you then finally reach that first Wi-Fi access point that is open and available, like, your life changes. And then 2 seconds later it fails again because you can't connect. And then you do that over and over again until you find your first Starbucks. Wonderful experience. Wi-Fi is still really slow. Coffee isn't that good. And expensive. And all of those things make it not a really pleasant experience. But all of a sudden, we were in Techstars. We had this idea to build a mobile provider that doesn't suck. Because most of them do. And ever since that day, when we launched our own network with this little gadget, I've been living in flight mode. My phone is in flight mode, my iPad is in flight mode. Most of the founding team of Karma is in flight mode for over 2 years. And we're traveling every now and then, but even when we touch down, we're still in flight mode. All of our communication is done through mobile apps. So if you think about the Internet of Things, it's hardware, it's software, but especially with a mobile phone, it's all about software. And it's all about the connectivity that makes it easier to reach out to people, to friends, to family. There's a younger generation. We just interviewed a bunch of kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, and they've been in flight mode their entire life. I still remember the day when I first got onto the internet. I think it's like over 15, 16 years ago. Squeaky noise of your dial-in modem. Most people do remember that. A younger generation has never been without Wi-Fi. And most of them use an iPod or an iPad to communicate. Hardly anyone uses a landline phone these days. Hardly anyone does a regular call. They use FaceTime, Google Hangouts, a million other apps we can use these days. And at the same time, people use text messaging apps. No one uses these traditional cellular services anymore, so these bigger carriers are slowly dying, and they know it. And because most people live in flight mode, you can think about a lot of cool things that you can do. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about how we started Karma and then bridge it into the Internet of Things. We found this device in the Best Buy that looked exactly like the device we have right now. The hardware was already there, but it was just a piece of plastic that didn't do anything special. So we took it apart, took out the battery, looked at the back, Infomark, South Korean company, never ever heard of them. So we jumped in onto email, we sent them an email and simply asked them, hey guys, can we buy 50,000 of these devices? Would be great, we're starting a mobile provider. And they were probably laughing really, really loud because we have absolutely, again, no clue what we were doing. And we did the same thing with the networks. So we spoke to Sprint, to T-Mobile, all the bigger guys, and told them the same thing. Hey, I'm Steven. This is my co-founder, Stefan. We're building a network. Can you help us? And they did. It takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months to get these deals in place. But we use these components off the shelf, hardware components. But we innovate with software. So you can probably get our product with a different carrier somewhere in the world, but not the same experience. So all of our innovation, everything that we've built is software. The hardware is just a vehicle to get our software and our service into people's pockets. The real innovation is in software. The commoditization of hardware makes it easier to build hardware. Hardware is really, really hard. You need a lot of money to keep your company running. You need to think about a supply chain. You need to think about buying the devices and hoping that someone will actually buy them from you. Making sure that hardware is something that already works, something that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you're building mobile hotspots. Many people tried to build mobile hotspots before. They were all bulky and looked like these old MP3 players from the 90s, buttons and screens. And the only thing that we wanted to do is just get a device, broadcast a Wi-Fi signal, and I'm done. So by making use of our own software, it got a lot easier to make a unique service and something that someone could actually use instead of be frustrated about. And all of a sudden, living in flight mode was the new thing, was the new normal. Always be connected to Wi-Fi, never have to worry about connecting to a Wi-Fi signal, because the Wi-Fi just travels with you. All of a sudden, this room works just like my living room. I open my laptop, and I'm good to go. Speaker room in the back, same deal. No need to look at the back of the flyer. I just brought my own Wi-Fi. So what does that have to do with the Internet of Things? Most of you probably remember this guy, Al Bundy. Big series of Married with Children. Nowadays I'm married, I have children, and most of the time I look just like this guy. I think my couch is a bit prettier than this one, but everything that I do is remote controlled. Everything that I want to do, all the information that I get, I use my mobile phone, the one that is connected to that Wi-Fi signal. And if you think about the Internet of Things, most people think about their refrigerator that can finally order when you're running low on beer or eggs or vegetables. Or you could use Nick's Plated. I prefer that. But the Internet of Things is really about adding an internet connection to things that already exist. It's not that complicated. Again, look back at that refrigerator, 30, 40 years old, but it's the same refrigerator. Now it just has an internet connection. This smoke alarm, the new smoke alarm from Nest on the left, it's an amazing device. It's beautifully designed, but it does the exact same thing. It starts to beep when your living room is on fire. It doesn't help you put out the fire. It just alerts you. But a smoke detector is one of the most annoying devices that we probably all have. It starts to beep for no reason. You need to grab a chair to turn it off. It takes you like 5, 6 attempts to finally push that one little button, and then it's finally turned off. But nowadays with my Nest protector, sit on my couch like Al, open my laptop or my phone, and I just snooze the alarm. So if I think about the Internet of Things, I first think about Al Bundy being really lazy, but then about all the things that he can do with his new remote. He can connect to devices that used to be unconnected. Nowadays, everyone uses these apps, and your phone becomes this remote control. So what happens with the hardware? One of the biggest trends that we've seen over the past year or so is faceless hardware. Hardware that requires absolutely zero physical interaction while the device is running. And it's about the elimination of anything more complicated than turning it on and off. Just like a Karma device, you turn it on, it works. If you don't need it, you turn it off. There's nothing on there. And if you look at a few of the, I think the best examples of this faceless hardware, the Philips Hue, you want to get a different light color, open the app. The Jawbone, you want to see how many steps you've taken, open your app. The Sense sleep tracker, about to be released early next year. Only one button, it tracks how you sleep, and it's a light as well. And there's this new Amazon Echo device. Amazing device. You put it in your living room, it's somehow connected to the Wi-Fi, and you just start to talk. You can give it commands like, OK, Google, and I think here, it probably has a different name. And then it tells you everything, but there is no interaction with the hardware whatsoever. So all the interaction is done by software. And the Internet of Things in this case is simply the software and the service behind the hardware. Most people think about the Internet of Things as a hardware solution, but it really is a software and service solution. All these devices, without an app, without a service behind it, are just pieces of plastic that don't do anything. This is a great example of a single-purpose device went wrong. This is a mobile hotspot from Sprint that is also a battery pack and a beamer. And you end up with a device that does three things incredibly worse, incredibly bad. The beamer that doesn't really work, the battery pack that is drained by the beamer, and with a battery pack running low, your hotspot doesn't work. And the display on it, I don't even need to start about that display. So if you look at the difference between these guys and these guys, that's the Internet of Things. It's something that you can control remotely. There's an internet connection on things that used to be unconnected. Normally your light bulb was just a light bulb. Now you can turn it on and off by using your mobile phone. This is what happens if you ask an incumbent industry what Internet of Things is. They build a mobile hotspot in the form of a car. You can pay $20,000 to get connectivity in your car, or you could just put a mobile hotspot in every car ever made, and then it also is online. So if we think about usability challenges, we want everyone to think about how they can simplify their products. Making a car connected to the internet can't be the only feature of the car, but nowadays they're promoting it as the only feature why you should buy this car. So if you think about products and Internet of Things products, they should make your life easier, not more complicated. If I get out of this car, my internet connection is gone again. And in our case, a mobile hotspot that doesn't fit in your pocket doesn't really deliver. So what's the biggest challenge for the Internet of Things? It's to think outside of the living room. Most of the devices that you've seen today will only work inside your living room. They require either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to get a connection, but none of the devices are capable of connecting to the internet on their own. Parking meters, for me, is one of those early Internet of Things examples where every parking meter in the city, everywhere, is connected to a remote server. The information is already being transmitted, but the amount of data transmitted with a parking meter is super, super small. It's like text message small. Nowadays, you think about your home security camera sending 1080p streaming video to your laptop. Requires a lot more data. So the entire model behind getting your devices connected is sort of broken. We still rely on companies like Time Warner, Sprint, Verizon to bring the connectivity in place, and they have no solution to make those internet gadgets available outside of your living room. because they all require a Wi-Fi access point or Bluetooth to get online. So when we talk to other startups that make photo frame security cameras, their biggest wish is a tiny little chip that they can put into their hardware, and then all of a sudden it's online even in a second home or on a boat. So one of the things that we're working on at Karma is trying to figure out how can we help other startups that make hardware to also bring those devices online outside of your living room, boardroom, or Starbucks. So in the next few years, you'll see us working together with a lot of startups, trying to make sure that their devices not just work where we think they should work, but also in new places that you never imagined you would use their services. So that's what we do. And that's my little chat. Thanks, guys.